I'm going to show you my favorite pizza recipe that you can make in the morning and it's ready to be prepared and eaten by the evening. And it has a ton of flavor and nice chew and it's got good crispy crunches on the outside and I think you're going to like it. I've taken some time to refine this over the years. What we need starts with the place to put it all. This is my food processor chopperizer thing. I press here, this motor turns these gears, and everything that I'd put into this glass container mixes up really good. It's similar to what you'd get out of a stationary mixer, like you'd get like making cookies in a mixing machine. This is a food processor that can also act like a mixer. That's what we're going to use it for. So we can actually take the motor off, put the bowl down, remove its lid, and we can leave the blade is 2 level. We can leave the blade in there because we're actually going to put our ingredients straight into that bowl. So I'll put the lid and the top away for now. Another thing we're going to need is a scale. That's going to make it much easier for us to do our measuring because I'm going to tell you ingredient amounts using grams because grams are very precise and they're easy to speak and they're easy to remember because you can just move numbers and decimals around if you want a kilogram versus a single gram. Putting that there, I'm going to now make it so that the container is on top. We can still see the amount through the bowl. Can we? Yes. And that's what we need there. So now it's time to add our flour. This pizza is going to use mostly standard white flour. You can use a substitute of your own kinds of flour if you like, as long as you know what types of flour work best for your types of diet. And I'm going to say mostly flour because some of our ingredients will actually be potato flakes in addition to the flour. So the basic idea is that there's 250 total grams of flours and starches in this recipe. 235 of those 250 come from the white flour that you add. So let's add that right now. Our zeroed scale is reading 0 as it should. I'm going to pour it right from these little containers I like here. And what I'm looking for is a number on the scale that reaches 250. Actually, that's incorrect. I want to see the number 235 on this scale. $235. We got it. We can put our white flour away because we added our 235 grams of it. I'm going to just shake this bowl a little bit. That's going to knock the little bits of dough or pre-dough, which is flour, off our scale. And I'll put it back on there. We knew we were at 235 grams, so I'm going to clear this out. Now I'm going to add our potato flakes until we get to 15 grams. And now we've added our 15 grams of potato flakes, which means we now have 250 grams of total thing in this bowl to be mixed. What we want next is an ingredient that is going to help us rise everything. That would be yeast. So we've got this is just regular plain old yeast. As far as how many, whatever grams to add, I don't know. Let's see. I'm going to watch the scale and see what it looks like. So that was 4.6 grams of yeast that I just added. I usually eyeball it. That was 6 total. 6 sounds good. 6 will be a decent rise. It will be ready in about 5 or 6 hours. You could also add a little extra, bring it out to 7 or 8, and that's going to help it go faster, so you need to work with it faster. And it's also going to slightly have more yeasty, flavory bits because It's just not going to have fully time to kill all the yeast and turn it into fun alcohol sugars and stuff. We've added our 6 to 8 grams of yeast to our bowl. We could add our salt right now, but that might limit its absorption, the overall absorption of all these ingredients to each other, if we do it now before we add the water. So instead, let's add our water component. I'm going to shake this up one more time, just pre-shaking it, pre-mixing it a tiny bit. And I'm going to show you the way I get water that is exactly the right temperature, because you must have your water for this recipe at around 105 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's, for all the metric I'm using, that's the only Fahrenheit number I'm going to use probably. 110 degrees to 105 degrees Fahrenheit is ideal to add to this recipe with the ingredients we've added and the yeast we're using. So what I do is I take room temperature water, which is in this vessel. To that, I'm going to go get my boiled, slightly much hotter water. This water has been boiled. It's 172 degrees Fahrenheit. So what I do is I add this water to this water, and then I measure the temperature of this water until it shows 105 to 110 degrees. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm actually going to do it on the table though, because that's safer. So we got our cool water over here. We got our warm hot water over here. And we got a temperature right here, our thermometer. So I'm just going to check the inside of that is 66 degrees. Let's add our hot water. Temperature is rising to 81, 87, 96, 91, 92, 98, 105. Let's watch what happens. Because we're adding cold to hot, so there'll be a back and forth. It's going from hot to cold, hot to cold, hot to cold, and then getting a temperature. That final temperature is 97 degrees. Let's keep going, adding all of our hot water. It's going to take exactly what we had. A 101 is going to be okay too. What it's going to do is at least kickstart the warm water process to start the yeast, and it's not going to kill it. And it's going to help our dough take a little longer to rise now. What we're going to do is remove this, the hot water. We're now going to add our water, which is 105-ish degrees, maybe 100 and, hold on. It's settled at 101 degrees. So that's acceptable for this recipe because I don't feel like boiling more water and starting a new video over. Let's go ahead and make sure we're cleared and tared out on our scale. Let us add 200 grams of our water that is 105 degrees. "200 grams of water are now in here. I can close the lid. Notice we haven't put our salt in yet. We're going to pre-mix this before we add our salt. Because again, if salt were in the water, it would limit absorption of other things because those things were absorbed by the salt instead. Let's let everything absorb itself before we introduce the most absorbent of parties to the party. And now one moment, because I must free up space on my phone. I've now cleared the space off my phone so I can record the rest of the overhead video that I'm also recording. And I am ready to now, that we gave it a little brief period to kind of almost pre-autolyse, which is kind of letting it soak up, I can put the lid on this, click, and we can proceed to mix it up. Let's see if we can get a better and more interesting view of that. Here we go. Okay, so it's just starting to come away from the bowl, as a recipe book might say. I'll move the dough hook out of the way. That is what it currently looks like. It's decent, but I'll tell you one thing I'm noticing is look at how dry it looks. So what we're gonna do is actually add a bit more water. And a bit is hard to quantify because I'm not putting it back on the scale. I'm just gonna put a little bit of this in there. This is our room temperature, 105-degree water. Just gonna go like this. Okay, that looks good. That might have been 10 grams. That might have been 15 grams. That might have been 25 grams. I don't actually know. All I know is by eye, I think I want it to look a little more wet. Even though it will change over the next 20 minutes as things kind of diffuse into each other and all become one. I still think that's too dry for this stage of the dough. So that's why we added the water. So consider at this point that the water usage of our recipe was between 200 grams and 220 grams. So after another cursory 30 seconds, it looks different. It's almost like a biscuit dough at this point. And actually, now we can leave it. I can just set it here for the 20 minutes that it's autolyzing and thinking about how to know itself better. And I'm going to turn it like this so that we can all observe that beautiful process. Just kind of buffet it in up here. Okay. 20 minutes. I'll come back then. Let's see, it's been about 15 minutes, not the full 20 that I promised. Let's see how it's looking. Looks good. Now we can add our salt. That's the next step. It's been autolyzed. Now that it's had a chance to know itself, let's add the thing that absorbs into itself, salt. We're going to add 9 to 10 grams of anything that's been iodized is good. Sea salt is good, regular salt is good. Just make sure you get iodines because, you know, well, iodine's awesome. Prevents all sorts of things, not just rickets. So we're adding 9 to 10 grams. There we go. And I'm just going to mix that in now. The more important thing is now, obviously salt is important because without salt there isn't much in the way of flavor. But the more important thing is that now we're actually going to mix this up. The first 30 seconds of mixing we did previously was really just to let it start to diffuse all the water into the dry ingredients. Now that happened, we're adding the salt. Now we're going to mix it so it actually starts creating gluten, those real stretchy protein bonds that get it all like... That's what we're going to create when we do the mixing of this dough. And it'll be about 2 minutes of it, so stick around. Okay, we've done 1 minute worth of mixing now. How does it look? Oh, different. This almost looks like a cake batter now, to me. This is good. We're on a good track. A high hydration dough is a good pizza dough. This is a high hydration dough because it's very sticky. There's lots of water. But even now, when I stuck my hand to it, it didn't come back with my hand. It let, my hand go. So it wasn't a sticky mess. It's just a sticky dough. Let's mix it another minute. Here's what it looks like. You could mix it as long as you want, really. I mean, there will be a point of diminishing returns, and I don't know what that is for every dough. I've found 2 minutes of mixing, even with this, which, by the way, cost, I think, less than $40 from Amazon. This thing does it. It's a pizza dough making machine. So I only give it 2 minutes because that's really all I need to get the job done. Do what you wish. There we go. Let's call it done. Oh, it's gorgeous. Trying to get, oh, thumbs up. Thanks, Apple. Thanks for duplicating the thing I needed to show on camera. I'm going to get the spatulizer. And I'm also going to get another container into which I'm transporting our dough. One moment while I put these items here. We also have an ingredient that I forgot to disclose. Olive oil. You might notice we didn't add it to our recipe, but we're adding it to the bowl that the dough will be in. And we're going to add it to the pan that the pizza will be made in, because this is going to be for a pan-based pizza in the way I'm making it. You can use it for your own type of pizza, but I'm putting it into I think it's an 11-inch circular pan. And I'm putting olive oil in both of those vessels. The dish into which it's rising, and then the pan into which it bakes. Neither of those are olive oil being directly added or mixed into the dough. So that's an important step that I'm deliberately putting in this recipe. It's the olive oils for the taste on the outside crust, but it's not to be mixed into the dough itself in my recipe. Because hey, I control the rules of my recipe. You change my recipe as you wish, but I control the rules of my recipe. So I'm going to mix this a little bit of olive oil into this container. I love these. These are the liners on an Instant Pot. And they come with, you can get a little silicone lid for them, so they're really good for rising dough. Because they're, they're heavy, pretty heavy gauge aluminum. So, once I've done that, and I'm good with the olive oil for now, I want to transfer the dough from this vessel into this, and I don't want the knife blade to come with it, or to cut my hand, because it is sharp. So I'm pre-scraping it off a little bit, just kind of using this to go down the sides. There we go. There we go. This reminds me of like a very hearty French bread dough. Hearty being another word for like one that starts as a sponge, like for 3 days it's rising real slow, and then you hit it and then you mix it really well so it's like got a sheen. That's what this reminds me of. Okay, let's see if I can pull this out. Yes, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to do this. Oh, Perfect. Okay, so now I can just take this little bit off, the thing here, and I'm going to scrape that into the bowl. See, what I want is to avoid having to get dough all over my hands. Because it is sticky and I don't really want to wash my hands midway through making a how-to video. They're clean. I'm continuing to work with them. I just don't want dough all over them. But it'll be a demonstration of how you, too, could make this recipe without getting your hands too messy. There's a qualifier there, too messy. So now I've got the blade out of here. That was the main thing that could have injured me. Now I'm just going to kind of scrape away at the sides of this, start to kind of pull it away. I'm also kind of mixing in the little bits of it on the side, and I just want it to fall into that bowl. Okay, so we got some residue, we'll just say leftover dough in this bowl. We can get it, but I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to think too much about it. I don't need to eat it. It won't affect the taste. Everything will still work. With anything that's dough covered, like the remnants of this, seal it off to air as soon as possible. Just because, you know, that's going to start to turn it from dough into paste and then into spackle, then into mortar, then into something you're never getting off. So if you seal it up, then you go wash it, you'll be safer than if you'd accidentally let it dry. You probably already know this if you've made dough anything before. We now have our dough in here. I'm going to kind of turn this a little bit. You see that? I'm going to turn it just so the olive oil covers it, and it's going to be eventually just coming away from the sides. There we go. And so now it's all covered with olive oil. I can turn it without getting my hand all whatever. And now I'm just covering it both sides, turning it twice, and now we got it. That's it. We made pizza dough. Technically, if that's all you needed to know, you're good. Please tell me how it turns out when you furnace this pizza in your oven. I'm going to close this one to rise. We will check on it in the standard duration is 2 hours. You let it rise for 2 hours, and then you punch it. You know, you just kind of poke a hole through it. Then it deflates. Then you let it rise again if you can in terms of your time. Or if you're not ready to eat it, put it in the fridge. Just let it do a slow rise for 3 to 4 days even, because all of that is going to not stop the process, but it's going to slow it down. It's going to take way longer for the process that's happening right now at room temperature with that hot water. It's going to happen 4 to 5 times slower in the fridge. That can yield much more intense and sweet flavors in your dough. So for now, we're intending to make this pizza in about 4 hours. So I'm going to let it rise. 2 hours from now, I'm going to poke it down. We're going to transfer it into our circular pizza pan, and then we let it rise again. Switch back to time-lapse mode, because I think time-lapse mode is fun. And I'll see you in 2 hours. It's been 2 hours. Let's see what our dough looks like. Ooh, fun stuff has happened. So look at that. It's already going to start to deflate a little bit. That'll give me some time to get my pizza pan that we're going to put this dough into. Hi, I'm Mr. Pizza Man. No, I'm actually still Carlton, but I'm demonstrating this pizza pan because I think it is 11 inches. Let's find out. We got this. I'm going to scoot you over dough. I'm going to take this tape measure and I'm going to see what we got here. I'm looking. Oh, it's fully. This is a 12-inch pizza pan. I didn't know that. That's diameter-wise 12 inches. So that's cool. That means that fits in my little pizza oven that I've been using all this time, which must have like 13 or 14 inches that it can take. That's good knowledge. I just never measured them before. So now we know that. This is a 12-inch circular diameter pizza pan into which I get to put more olive oil. I love putting really good tasting olive oil into a pizza pan because I know the pizza's gonna be cooking in that. It's gonna turn this olive oil into a snackable fry bread that you can keep eating a pizza. I don't know how to describe this, but it's really good. So I'm just gonna go, it's gonna look like I'm doing a little bit too much. It's up to you to decide if that was too much. I want this much because I basically want to be frying my pizza in this olive oil. Now I have an oven that can reach a very high temperature of 700 degrees Fahrenheit. It does that because it's a really small space that's like double-walled insulated. It uses a ceramic pizza stone with the pizza steel on top of that. And it takes like 45 minutes just to get it hot, to get to that 700 degree temperature. But it only takes about 5 or 6 minutes to cook this pizza, the whole thing, at that temperature. So the way you cook your pizza and the oven temperature you can reach will probably determine certain aspects of how you'll prepare your pizza. But I'm going to prepare this and make it the way I always do with the oven that has 700 degrees temperature as an option. All right, we've got our oil. There's a good amount of oil in here. Hi, wait, am I in there? Yeah, hi. Okay, so I'm gonna now take the dough out of the other side here. So I'm moving the dough from here and putting it over here. Let's just move that. Just come away from the sides a little bit. It's a good sticky, tacky dough. And I'm going to try to keep it kind of disc-like, the way it already is right now, as you see. And what I'm going to do is just kind of free it. Once I've freed it, I'm going to just plop it. Ready? That was a pretty bad plop. But I can just kind of lift it up, place it over there, take a little bit of that overslung dough and push it over there. And what I want to do now is, instead of letting it rest or do anything, I'm going to take fingers and just dimple the hell out of this thing. Because if I try to, for example, stretch it like that, those glutens that we created earlier are going to snap and resist. They're going to say, don't stretch me so much. So what we're instead going to do is do this and just kind of move all around in the shape of the container we're using. And that's going to help us spread the dough to the corners without us basically having to wait, I don't know, many resting periods of up to 20 to 50 minutes each. Because you can probably, doing this method, you can probably get the dough to fill just about any container. And as you can see, it's really straightforward. I'm not doing too much with this technique. It's massaging the dough, if anything. It's a very lucky, happy dough. And you'll notice that some of the olive oil is coming over the sides as we get to the edge. That's okay. That's okay. Not only will it be kind of self-sealing in the sense that now that part of the dough won't be drying out anytime soon, it also is going to start to contribute to the overall flavor of the dough, because it's going to start to mesh together over this next hour plus that it gets to rise again. And that's really about it. Look at that. We pretty much got it into the corners in this time. And that, I wasn't even really trying. That was practically meditation. I also like to make it so, you'll notice I didn't, there's kind of a crust here where it's a little thicker along the edges. That is by design because I like a nice crust that you get to, you know, at the end of the slice, you've had all the cheese and you've had all the toppings. Well, guess what? You get a new thing that also is called the crust that reminds you of just how good that slice was, and maybe it makes you want another one after too. That's kind of how I look at a crust. It should be like the best piece of the pizza that when you finish eating it, you're like, oh, I could have another slice of that. In fact, I liken that to a cookie recipe for snickerdoodles that uses something called cream of tartar, which has a very strong taste. It actually makes us kind of want another cookie after we finish a snickerdoodle if it has cream of tartar because of that taste. It's like, hey, that's interesting. How can I don't want that taste to go away. I just want it to be different. Okay, I'll have another one of those cookies. So I like crust to be very, in a similar way, inviting of the person to have another piece. Okay, this is to me, this is a very good looking, ready to rise again pizza that's rising in a state of happiness. I'm going to take this, close it up, swap it out for hand washing. Okay. Nope. Foil time. That sounds like an MC Hammer song. Stop. Foil time. We have our pizza being covered here by this single piece of foil. I want it to be tautly covered because that will ensure the pizza doesn't rise so high that it sticks to the top. This taut foil won't have any sags that'll catch the pizza as it rises. Covered it, tiny little air gap there, but it's okay. This can stay, I'm gonna turn it. No, I'm gonna leave it. For the benefit of a future time-lapse video that's being recorded in this angle, I'm going to leave it. The next step will actually be one of the simpler steps, and we can just let it set right now. So I'm going to add the tomato sauce recipe to this component of the pizza recipe. So hold on one second while I get it ready. There we go. That's a container for holding our sauce. That's a tomato can. That's a can opener. Here is our tomato sauce. Like, it's going to be just this. We're not adding anything else to it. This specifically has a lot of things to look for if you're going to make the pizza the same way I'm making it, so we have the same thing. I'm getting this brand of tomatoes. They're from exactly this place in Italy called San Marzano, and they're actually certified. Those are the three things to look for when you get a San Marzano tomato. I'm telling you that because there are some brands that sometimes just say they're in the style of a San Marzano. That's not the same thing, so try to get these if you can, and if you have a Trader Joe's in your area, if you're very lucky, this is available at most Trader Joe's at a very good price, like the best price I found consistently. So once you have this and this, a can opener, you can now begin the fun process of making your tomato sauce. I'm going to do it down here for the benefit of my arms. In fact, I'm going to turn that. All right, and now we lift that. We can put our can opener away. We can open our container, and now we can take our container and we can take our open can of tomatoes, and we've just made our pizza sauce. Now, it seems like that was way too simple. I know, way too simple. That wasn't a pizza sauce, that's called tomatoes. Maybe. My next step is to take those tomatoes and take this hand and make them one with each other. These tomatoes, if you'll look at them, they're like a plum tomato almost, and they're really soft. So as you squeeze them, see that squirted some out. As you squeeze them, they're very delicate, and they're just going to turn into basically a tomato sauce that's kind of thick and chunky and has some quality to it, like in terms of its substance. There's something to it. It's not just tomato juice. And you can basically take all of those little tomatoes within a container like I just did and just squish them right in there in the container. That's what I'm doing right now. Sometimes there's a basil leaf that I'd recommend that you fish out. If it's the organic can of those tomatoes, there's a basil leaf in there. So look for that and take it out because it's not going to be that good. Like, it's there for the flavor, and the flavor's now in the tomatoes. So take the basil leaf out because now the basil leaf's just a green husk of sorts. And now we've basically done the whole jar where it's basically sauce consistency now. You see what that is? That's almost as though you bought a can of, I guess it would be crushed tomatoes is literally the definition of what these would be. So if you ever buy crushed tomatoes at the grocery store, see if you can find a can of whole San Marzano tomatoes and just swap those crushed tomatoes in your recipe for the San Marzanos. Do this to them and then swap them out. Everything else should be equivalent. See if you notice a difference. I mean, I think you will. There's a reason for these tomatoes being so high in their flavor, and supposedly it's due to the volcanic ash of the San Marzano region of Italy, which is adjacent to Pompeii, which blew its top quite a few thousand years ago. Or just a few thousand years ago, rather. And so it's got some extra qualities in its soil that produce a very flavorful tomato. And I don't know the science behind it besides my flavor taste bud receptors saying the science is right. So I always get these whenever possible. And now we have our tomato sauce we can just put on our pizza as it rises. Because in the same way that we originally added our water and our flour together for a while so they'd know each other and diffuse, that Autolyse process, we kind of want that same process to happen with our dough that's rising and our tomato sauce. Because we can combine these two now, and now they can start to have that gradient layer where there's a sauce on top of the dough, and that can start to become a nice, really, well, we'll just call it an ill-defined, delicious layer between those two different layers. Look, this has already risen a decent amount in the 10 plus minutes since we made this. And because we're not fancy, I can use my hand to put this sauce on the pizza. And you'll notice even though I didn't add any ingredients to this sauce is now going to benefit from a strong olive oil flavor in certain parts. Because look, I'm just adding this tomato juice or tomato right to a pizza that's got olive oil on it. So together they're going to make a sauce that tasted like it had olive oil in it. And for all intents and purposes, that's true. So I'm not using more than maybe a third of the can of the tomato sauce. Like literally of the thing we made that was a can of tomatoes, I'm probably using less than a third of it. Maybe even a quarter of it. And once I have, I'm kind of just making it evenly distributed on the pizza. And I'm kind of doing a little strategically pushing of the pizza toward the edges of the pan as well, just to kind of make sure it all gets in there. And I also like to create a little bit of fun. There's like a border now, you know, with that, the sauce zone and the tomato and the whatever zone. Okay, now they're all gonna rise. They're gonna hang out, have a good time. I'm gonna get another set of paper towels dirtied up just so that my hand can be clean without me having to go to the sink. And I'm gonna put our original foil back on. And you know, obviously what the pizza will say, the pizza dough that's rising here will say when I go to cover it with foil, right? It'll say, oh, foiled again. But soon we will bake you, Mr. Pizza, and you will love the new you that you become out of the oven. Well, you'll love the cheese we add to you because that's going to make you really good too. Now we let that rise for another hour plus. I take this and I put it in the fridge because this is 3 more sauces, maybe 4, for 3 other pizzas. And we'll come back when it's kind of darker outside because right now it's about to be evening time because I always make my pizzas so that they're ready for dinner time. Once it's dark out to me, that's dinner time. So it'll be a little darker when you see me again in a moment, and we'll be a little closer to baking this pizza. Yeah, that's the next thing we need. Cheese grommet. It's been an hour and a half. I've got one of the last two ingredients we're going to need for our pizza. That's a cheese pizza. Cheese. This is going to be for the outside edge crust. Oh, it's stuck. That thing I mentioned got a little stuck. But look how nice and puffy our pizza is. And I'm just going to let that go back down. It's fine. We're going to open up this and we're going to put it around the edges. So I'm basically just putting some of the cheese in my hand and I'm putting it around the edge of the crust. It's okay if it gets on the cutting board. It's okay if it gets anywhere because it's all going to go onto a pizza and then it's going to go into you. This is going to create a really fun, crispy, it's called a frico, F-R-I-C-C-O, frico, crust, which is basically when cheese melts and bubbles up on itself and gets all crunchy and hard. That's in the oven. That's a frico. And I put a little bit here in the middle, and then we're going to leave that. I'm going to collect these little bits. They can go back. Okay. And everything else, I will do a decent job of recollecting. And we're going to put the foil back on for a bit. And while this is rising, we're going to turn on the oven. Okay, I'm back and I brought two things with me. The last cheese for our pizza and this tool that is so unique looking I just had to share it. And it's also going to be used to do the job of taking the pizza in and out of the oven. So I'll leave that there for now. One moment. Okay, starting again. I have returned with the second of our two cheeses and a tool that we're going to use to take our pizza pan and pick it up and then put it into the oven and then take it out of the oven. This thing is so fun. It's all squeeze like there's a spring in the handle. And I can leave that right there. Here's our cheese. I'm going to take that and let's see how our pizza has risen. Oh, it's so puffy. Okay, we can get rid of the foil now because we're almost going to put this in the oven. Like the last thing we're doing is putting on this cold cheese, which I just took out of the refrigerator, and putting it onto our pizza. For this one, I can just use the bag like this. And now we have, oh, thank you, oven. You're so right. All right. The oven is reminding me that it's preheated. And so we're done with our cheese. I'm going to show you the temperature with this thermometer. I'm going to take a picture of the oven pizza stone with this thermometer's instant read feature. See what its temperature reads. 722. So 722 degrees is the temperature that I'm putting this pizza onto a stone, steel actually, and the remaining oven around it is about 722, well, 700 degrees as well. So we're only going to need about 5 to 6 minutes. Let's see if I can remember the order in which I put this pizza in. Whoop, whoop. And now we wait. I can clear a little bit of this cheese away. Well, that's it. I'm going to shift back into time lapse. We'll check back in about 5 minutes and see how things are looking. Okay, it's been our, excuse me. Okay. Now we take the pizza out of the oven. We get to use the tool. That's a good sound. And this pizza, as it introduces itself to this new non-700 degree environment, because it was in a very hot room, now it's in a much bigger, cooler room. So this pizza is actually going to start to kind of settle down a little bit, cool down. It's going to start making as much noise. And in just a few minutes, I'll be able to kind of take a knife around this and cut it away from its cheesy edge. And then I'll be able to cut some slices out of this so we can actually start to consume it and see what they look like, because it's really fun. The satisfying moment when you make your own pizza is obviously eating it. But sometimes there's an extra level of enjoyment when the pizza's actual like crumb and like cutaway side view of it is so beautiful that you just get like an extra endorphin boost and you're just delighted. So maybe this one will be like that too. I need to find a tool that will help me get around that, like I just mentioned. In fact, what I will do is I can move that. I'm going to use this, which is called it's a fish turner, technically. And it's going to be what I take around the outside edge of this right here. And the other thing is going to be a little bit of this parchment paper. And that's going to be the thing upon which I place my pizza slice after I've cut it out of this box, circle. Keeping this tool handy, because while I cut this, I'm going to use this tool to cut that pizza, and I'll probably use this to hold that. It's already much quieter. Maybe we can go ahead. Like, it can be time. Let's check. Let's see. Keeping my, whatever this one is, in this hand. I'm going to hold this edge of this pizza. I'm just going to go like that. I just want to break that bond. Oh yeah, that's easy. See, with so much oil, like, I mean, there's a lot of oil in this pizza. We saw it. And there's a lot of oil on the cheese. So with all that oil, it should just come away pretty cleanly. But we'll see. Some of these might be sticky. I'm not sure what the word would be. The trick is having something bendable, something you can kind of get in there and it kind of conforms. Like I can actually push this down in there, get a little bit, you know. This is a useful tool, the fish turner. Normally I would use this hand and turn the pizza, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to try to keep the pizza stationary and work around it. All right, I got the corner crusts cut away. Now I'm using the same tool to simply cut across the middle of the pizza. And then I'm going to cut like this. Now I've basically made 4 score, and it didn't even take 7 years. Sorry, that was low-hanging pun fruit for the American history buffs in the world. So I'm going to now cut another 2 score across, so there's going to be basically 8 slices from these 4 cuts. By the way, the total bake time for this pizza was less than 5 minutes at 700 degrees. It would be a different temperature at a different time. I'm sorry. It would be a different time at a different temperature. So you'll have to figure out what yours is. Okay. I've cut it. This pizza has 8 slices. I think the one I want to remove is this one. So I'm just going to make sure it's fully free, unmoored. No longer encumbered by precepts of pan adherence. Oh yeah, okay. And I'm just going to take it out, and I'm going to put it on this piece of parchment paper that I put down. Oh, look at that. Okay, so there, look at that, right? Hi, Yay, it's a Pizza Hut. Okay, sorry, that was fun. I'll put that right there. Just let it be. And this can go. This can kind of go as well. And I will wait. I will wait that long, and now I will have some. Here's our slice. Oh boy. This reminds me so much of a Pizza Hut pan pizza mixed with a BJ's Brewhouse potato pizza, because their pizzas use potato in their dough, and it adds this additional just supple quality to it. It's just so good. So, and you can see where it actually cooked through in that little bit right there. I don't know, this is, if you make this pizza, please tell me what you think of it. This is my new favorite pizza. It's decadent depending on what you put on it and the toppings you add. Even this cheese pizza is crazy caloric, but, well, look at it. It's worth it. Remember, your ingredients matter. You're going to be making this pizza with your own ingredients. So the things you use to build your pizza will become the things that make your pizza, and then those are the things that you are made of at some level. I really liked all the ingredients I added to this. I freely admit that some of them were more expensive than another version of the same ingredient. I believe the flavor is worth that higher price that I paid for some of those ingredients. It's up to you to decide if that's true for you. I wish I could share this flavor with you and actually just say, like, you know, here, obviously it's worth it. See that flavor? But I can't. You have to figure out for yourself what's the best combination of things you have access to. This is a worthwhile treat to make for yourself or a loved one or anyone you want to feed, because pizza is perfect food. You can top it with anything, and you've got a pizza that's also that meal you topped it with. This pizza is really good. This is really good pizza. I'm not sure the video's still recording or not. Because I spent all day recording the video in it, on and off. Now I just want to relax and watch Bob's Burgers, which is why I've got my headphones in. And I'm eating this pizza.